Overnight, the Israeli Defense Forces carried out a pretty unusual cross-border raid into the demilitarized zone on the Golan Heights frontier and destroyed 2 Syrian military posts there. Well, for more on this, let's go to our correspondent Daniel Tzemach in Tel Aviv. And Daniel, we haven't seen this specific type of action recently on that admittedly tense frontier.
Absolutely, Calev. We haven't seen it in any recent time that I can recall. It has happened in the past, but we are looking at a slightly different situation. This latest sort of operation by the IDF happened, as you mentioned, a week ago, where they went into Syrian territory using infantry brigade of Nahal, the Nahal brigade, and a special forces unit of the combat engineers that specializes in detonating and explosive sort of materials. And indeed, they came in handy when it came to actually exploding those 2 posts simultaneously. According to one of the commanders, we're talking about troops that were some 500 meters away from Syrian forces when this took place in the dark of night, exploding the 2 posts and returning back into Israeli territory. This was a clear message, not only to Syria, Calev, but also to Hezbollah. What the IDF described as a successful operation. There was no reports of injuries on either side as a result of this clandestine operation, which happened again just a week ago.
Right, and what's interesting, Daniel, is we have at that border, I always have to say relative quiet. There are always incidents, but it does seem, and perhaps it has something to do with the level of fighting dropping on the Syrian side between internal forces there. We have seen more quiet on that tense border.
Exactly right, and we are also seeing the IDF continuing with its operations. We know that there have been hundreds of Israeli Air Force strikes in Syria against Iranian assets or proxies throughout Syria, and that was made quite clear in the reveal by the IDF through one of its commanders, saying that any of these posts that were set up in this buffer zone, in an area that's it's really illegal to place any military assets, it's a dual sort of purpose. It could serve Syrian forces, but it could also serve Iranian, aka Hezbollah, or Iranian proxies within Syria. So because of that, this has an added importance, which is why we're seeing the IDF going through this sort of operation, an operation that may usually be done discreetly without IDF actually acknowledging it. This time, potentially, Calev, because we're talking about an area that is in immediate proximity to the Israeli border, an area that could even be visible from anyone who wants to look over to the Syrian side of the border in regions like Quneitra, where there have been incidents in the past where the IDF has struck Hezbollah assets and acknowledged to striking them. We saw the Iranian proxies exploiting another sort of structure, an abandoned hospital, which is visible from the Israeli border. Here, we don't know exactly when these observation posts were set up, but we know the IDF didn't waste any time to take them out.